So a lot has happened at Chelsea over the past week. Well, so much always happens at Chelsea, as is the nature of our club. But now Chelsea have a new signing, quite a big signing in Mykhailo Mudryk, and I'm glad to say I'm joined by an expert to speak about him, Andrew Todos. How you doing, Andrew? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Daniel. Looking forward to chatting a bit more about him and the surprise that essentially the past few days have seen us all get involved in.
Yeah, it was mental. I was sat here on Saturday evening. I just watched the 3:00 games unfold, and then I saw the news. And then I was at Stamford Bridge on Sunday with Mudryk on the pitch at half time. It's one of the most wild transfer stories. I mean, this time last week, if I'd have said to you, all of that was about to unravel and he'd become a Chelsea player rather than going to Arsenal, would you have believed me?
Honestly, no. Just based on all of the chat from, every insider going, from all the journalists that were saying that essentially Arsenal were pulling up front in the race and closing in on a deal. And I think the fact is that Chelsea were involved in some talks, obviously at the start of the year when Dario Serna was at Stamford Bridge a few weeks ago. And I think it just went a bit cold in the media anyway. I assume that Chelsea were continuing those talks behind closed doors and everything else. And then, on the day that we're recording this right now, Serhii Palkin, the Shakhtar CEO, he's come out with loads of insight on the deal from his end, saying that Chelsea essentially flew in on the Friday or the Saturday and got the deal done after 10 hours of talks. So it just seems like Chelsea were a lot more focused and wanting Mudryk compared to Arsenal, who apparently offered the exact same money as Chelsea. So that kind of stuff where we've been saying that essentially Chelsea turned up with all the cash and everything else, then that's why it shifted it over. I think it was more to do with like the bonuses and how everything was paid out finally. And I guess Mudryk was swayed over because we've been seeing the public affection he's been showing for Arsenal and everything over the past few months. And after the words of Palkin today, it seems that makes a bit more sense, because apparently Arsenal have been chatting to Mudryk since about October time, like directly. And they didn't start talking to Shakhtar until, December-ish time. So Mudryk's probably been set on Arsenal in a personal bubble sense. And then Chelsea came in with the actual goods, you could say.
Yeah, I did see the briefing on Monday night from Arsenal sources trying to sort of make out that Chelsea had paid such a big fee for Mudryk over Arsenal, and effectively Chelsea have got a worse deal. But it is interesting reading those quotes today, because it kind of, I think, changes the complexion. I'm sure if you're an Arsenal fan, you probably don't want to believe that, and you'll believe the Arsenal side of things as the nature of these deals and sort of the rumours that go around the business of transfers. I found it interesting. I know you tweeted this out regarding Mudryk at Stamford Bridge when he was unveiled at half-time to the Stamford Bridge crowd, to a really good reception. He was joined by the sporting director of Shakhtar, which is a really unique thing. I know obviously with Shakhtar, with what's been going on in Ukraine over the past nearly year now, of course it's a very unique situation. Does that kind of reflect how close those two are, and also how close Mudryk was to Shakhtar as a club?
Absolutely. Mudryk's been at Shakhtar since, past 6 years or so, since playing for a number of other Ukrainian youth teams. And he's obviously made his proper development in his career over the past 18 months, but Shakhtar have been there for him an awful long time. And Dario Serna, he's the sporting director, but also he's got a very close connection to Shakhtar as a club anyway, because he was long-serving captain, played against Chelsea a fair few times in his career. And he, as far as I'm aware, I saw someone tweet this a few weeks ago, he lives in London. So I think he's probably a regular at Stamford Bridge anyway, just maybe no one was really paying attention beforehand. And basically, Dario Serna was the one that started pushing this £100 million fee. He was the one that was pushing it in the media and everywhere else, saying that Mudryk is the third best left winger in Europe after Mbappe and Vinicius. And he, I think, was the one that ended up seeing this through. The reason I think that he was probably at Stamford Bridge was more to do with the fact that he was like a representative of the club and essentially the player that was able to actually come to the UK with a visa because he lives here and everything else, compared to maybe his agents who might not have been able to get that in time. And due to obviously the war and stuff, there's different rules about leaving Ukraine and other bits and pieces. So I think he was just probably the best placed to encapsulate all of that, hence why he did that. And he was very sort of full frontal in his participation with Mudryk, with the photo with the flag in the director's box and everything else. And I think that just shows that how, compared to like maybe the UK or even just Western European sides and other clubs around the world, when a transfer is made, like the player just leaves. And that's it. It's like, you get a thanks and everything else. Whereas this is quite a big deal for Shakhtar and for Ukraine. It's the most expensive Ukrainian signing of all time. They've made a load of money also with the fact that the current situation the country's in and the club is in. I think they just wanted to maximise this as sort of like you could say it's a PR thing, not just for the club, but also for Ukraine as well, to sort of make it as sort of as well known as possible. And that comes into also the bit about Akhmetov, the Shakhtar owner, using his, I guess, official statement about Mudryk leaving to announce that he's also starting up a charity initiative. And for any Chelsea fans out there, just to want to clarify that Akhmetov never actually mentioned that those funds would be coming from the Mudryk deal. So it's not like Chelsea overpaid 20 million on purpose so that 20 million could be donated. Shakhtar's owner is already a billionaire. That money's coming from other businesses, which I think Palkin confirmed to The Athletic earlier today. And essentially he said that, no, that was never explicitly stated. I think someone just literally misinterpreted what was happening or put two and two together. It's just another sort of PR masterclass from Shakhtar, where by using the Mudryk hype, they can also bring attention to something sort of completely unrelated to football, but for a good cause.
Yeah, and as well, that I saw the thing about the idea between Chelsea and Shakhtar to have a friendly, hopefully sometime in the future, if that's possible. So I think that's maybe where people are putting two and two together. There's a friendly. Is that part of the bonus? Is that part of the money that's going in? And there was also some comment, I think quite expectedly, regarding what happened with Chelsea almost this time last year regarding Roman Abramovich. So I think there were some people, maybe more on the Arsenal side, coming up with some weird conspiracy theories that this is why Chelsea have done this deal. But it's nice to have that clarity. And as I said, I think it's for Shakhtar, and also the social media side of it over the weekend was quite interesting between both clubs. I've never seen a situation where Chelsea in particular, knowing Chelsea, have put out almost an Instagram shout out to the player before we've actually officially unveiled them. That was quite unique. But let's get to the player. I mean, I think that personally I didn't know much about Mudryk other than probably seeing his goal against Celtic earlier in the Champions League group stage, which I'm sure a lot of Chelsea fans and a lot of football fans is probably where they saw him in the Champions League. What makes him stand out about this talent? It's not only like a negotiating position for a sporting director to say, oh, he's like Vinicius, he's like Neymar. Or Kylian Mbappe, you've got to say that with some evidence behind it. So there quite clearly is a talent here that has gained the interest of at least two of the Premier League's biggest clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously a lot of people are talking about, oh, this guy's only got like 40 senior appearances and 20 goals or 12 goals or something like that. And essentially, I think it's more about the physical attributes and the technical attributes that Mudryk has that have got people very excited about him and about his possible potential going forward, because he has blown up astronomically over the past 18 months, really. And, more seriously over the past 10 months or so. But essentially, he was already catching the eye in the youth competitions like UEFA Youth League about 3-4 years ago, where he was doing like sort of quite a skillful player, but very like slight, very quite skinny. And he looked like he had promise, but he was always getting sort of bullied off the ball, didn't look too serious. So something had to be done. And he had a few problems with a couple of the previous Shakhtar managers, because he loved making loads of skill videos for like 433, TikTok and everything like that. And they sort of questioned his attitude, especially with Castro. And that resulted in going on a few loans, and then when returning, not really playing much for the senior team. And when De Zerbi came, he sort of gave him that faith. He's that kind of good people person, manager, and he essentially gave Mudryk the chance to start playing in the team, and that allowed the confidence and the sort of attributes that we've seen start to grow. So essentially, Mudryk's a very good technical winger, really extremely fast. I've told this to a million people now, but one of the fastest players I've ever seen. And I think that people at Stamford Bridge and elsewhere, hopefully at Anfield, will see how fast he actually is. On top of that, when he's running with the ball, he's one of the fastest players as well. Like, you get the likes of Theo Walcott who are really quick, but they, when they were on the ball, it wasn't as sort of fluid or anything like that. Whereas Mudryk, he can sprint as fast as he can with the ball, close ball control, and he's also got that deceleration to sort of make a shift in sort of the play so that he can move it onto another foot, beat a defender, and then try and find a bit of space. On top of that, he's got good at passing, got a whole array of passing and vision in terms of trying to find someone on the opposing flank, working with his midfield to try and move attack, which I know at the moment is a bit of a problem at Chelsea. So hopefully that can be resolved to sort of hopefully complement each other and help each other out in that respect. And as well as that, he's been working on his finishing recently. He's still probably not the finished product in that respect, but he's been working on it a lot, working a lot on his weak foot, which is his left, where he's been finishing with that, working extra hours after training, also going to the gym, which I think after hours, that is, with a personal trainer, where he's working a lot on his body mass and sort of trying to get as strong as possible. And he's built up. When I said that he was that scrawny guy, he's now a player that I think would be very well suited to the Premier League in terms of the physicality, where he won't be bullied off the ball. If he's going into a sort of a 1v1 challenge where he has to sort of go shoulder to shoulder with someone, he can come out on top in some of those. And I think that means that he is ready for this next step. Obviously, a lot of development left to go. He's still raw. He's got a bit of decision making to improve on in terms of trying to take a lot of stuff on. But I'm hoping that the fact that there's more quality in the side at Chelsea compared to Shakhtar, it will allow him to, if he is, for example, doubled up on or made to be marked out the game, that will create more space for his other teammates to try and do something with that. So I think there's a lot of positives, and still a few bits of work that are left to do. Obviously, over the next 8.5 years later at Chelsea.
Yeah, that short contract he's been given, I don't know how long he's actually going to be here for. But it's interesting you mentioned the physical side of it, because that's something that wide players we've bought recently, like Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic, I think have really struggled with, is that physical challenge of the Premier League. And when you mentioned his speed, I mean, this was something that was brought up when Timo Werner was signed. But, Werner, as we saw at Chelsea, where he failed was, at least in my opinion, was technically, just wasn't good technically on the ball. If you put a ball in front of him to run onto, that's where his speed and acceleration can be quite frightening. So as you say, on the ball, that's something Chelsea have really lacked, of those players who can be great off the ball runners, but also on the ball and really take opponents out of the game. So hopefully he can produce that. The transition to Premier League football, I mean, it's not just about moving from one league to another. It's also a culture and a new country. I mean, especially for a young player, this may be something as football fans we don't appreciate. We just kind of see, almost like FIFA, right? We look at one player going and we'll transpose the abilities to another place, and hopefully they do the same. But this is the Premier League. This is Chelsea. This is one of the bigger clubs in the league. I mean, do you have concerns about that challenge that now faces him, especially at a club that isn't doing amazingly well and doesn't have the greatest feeling at the moment?
So obviously I think he knows that there's loads of pressure on him now, both for the fee, not just at Chelsea, but also at back in Ukraine, because everyone knows that there's this big burden. He's now the poster boy. He now has to, I guess, essentially fulfill what Andriy Shevchenko did when he moved from Dynamo Kiev to AC Milan and, won Ballon d'Or and everything else. Whereas apparently in the bonus add-on clause, there is no Ballon d'Or from the Chelsea side. So that maybe that makes it a bit easier, but still that's one of his own personal goals. And he's got the pressure where he's going to have to step up almost immediately, I guess, because of the current situation that Chelsea are in. There's a lot of pressure going on. The fans will probably be on his back after a few games if he's not performing, just because of the current, I guess, climate, because it's a lot of uncertainty. Seems a bit of a mess. There's also uncertainty over Potter. Yeah, he might stay, and there is those sort of confirmations that he is part of the long-term deal, but you never know. In football, you never know, especially in Bowley, because he's relatively new to the club. So we will see how that goes. But I think that he can step up to it, in all honesty. He seems to have this Cristiano Ronaldo type mentality, drive, determination. And, you know, if anything, you can say it as like when you're that good, you have to be that certain in yourself. Some people would call it delusion, or, you know, just to be that good, you have to carry on and believe in yourself. And he's got that. It's like, I don't think, at least for the time being, he doesn't seem to be someone who's going to lose any confidence. He's trying to sort of like hit new heights every single game, every single match that he plays in. And now that he's got sort of a new stage to do that in, I think he's certainly not going to let it down. And if anything, I feel that this season for Chelsea is kind of, I think a lot of people have already confined it to, you're not going to make top four, and there's not that much to lose. Just don't make it a complete embarrassment of a season is essentially the main goal. And then sort of crack on once you can sell a load of players in the summer and sort of start restructuring properly then. So these next 6 months, I think, is probably quite a good opportunity for him to properly bed into the side. He can obviously get to know his teammates a bit more. He's got good English already, so that's massive positive. He likes that kind of, I guess, London lifestyle anyway, where, you know, he's wearing all the latest Louis Vuitton and everything else. He loves tattoos, but he's also not like a party boy per se, where as far as I'm aware, he doesn't drink, and he's very sort of structured and focused on being in the gym if he's not on the pitch, or doing something else, watching Naruto, and, you know, those kind of sort of niche kind of things. So he's kind of got that superstar image already. He just now needs to sort of fulfill that on the pitch from all the hype and potential that he's already shown in the sort of short period he has had at Shakhtar.
Well, at Stamford Bridge, he isn't too far away from Harrods, so I'm sure
he
can get himself
He'll
down
be
there.
in there plenty of times.
Yeah, you go around some of the places around there, and it is like footballer central. It's like, this is where footballers shop. So I'm sure he'll like that. You mentioned sort of his character, and kind of, I think Chelsea have needed players with broader shoulders, you know, that kind of that swagger that we used to have with some of our great players. And the easiest one, and he's probably going to be compared to him based on his positioning, to Eden Hazard, because that was the last, I guess, great world-class player Chelsea had, at least from an attacking point of view. And, you know, if he can fulfill some of that, and I did say this on my podcast the day after sort of the news broke about him signing, that maybe this is a good time to come to Chelsea, because there's such a lack of that he may take the responsibility on and think, you know, if he would have come, say, 5 years earlier, you know, there would have been more competition for him, and he may have been lost in a shuffle like a Mohamed Salah or Kevin De Bruyne. You know, this may be the perfect time. I mean, do you kind of think that coming to Chelsea at this point in his career, or at least at this point in Chelsea history, it might actually turn out to be a good thing for Mudryk?
Honestly, over sort of the past few days, and I've been thinking about it, yes. I thought initially that he'd probably be a better fit for Arsenal just right now, in terms of he probably wouldn't be a starter for them initially, especially in the next 6 months at least. But he would have sort of come on as a sub for Martinelli, and, you know, involved in Europa League, and continue on until the end of the season, win the Premier League sort of in his first 6 months. However, at Chelsea, but the thing is, there he wouldn't be like a star, because they've got like a number of players across the team that are like really shining at the moment. And obviously, probably, especially if he was like coming on as a sub and stuff, he wouldn't get to that. And I feel that that's what he sort of wants and needs at the moment, where he needs to sort of be validated as this savior, messiah type person, where, hey, this guy can be one of the best players on the planet. Let me just showcase that. And I agree with you. I think, Daniel, that he could be that person that sort of lifts everyone else in the team, in terms of, wow, this guy's doing brilliant stuff. That sort of might motivate me to give an extra 10%, 110% when this guy's doing it. Why am I sort of slacking and everything else? So, I'm sure that he's going to bring a bit more of that magic feeling when Chelsea are playing, hopefully. So, fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, I did think that Joao Felix definitely offered that. You saw some of the players before, of course, he two-footed an opponent and got himself sent off and banned for a month. But, I think that you could see that level sort of rising in Chelsea players, particularly someone like Kai Havertz, who seems to operate better with players around him. Like if he doesn't seem to be that leading player. If players around him are playing well, he plays well, rather than him being sort of one of those players who really commands
take it on his shoulders.
Yeah. And I think, hopefully, as I say, I think Chelsea lack those type of characters who are just going to say, give me the ball, I'm taking responsibility in this game, and hopefully, as I say, we've got a good enough character in Mudryk to do that. Final question, and I guess it may be an easy one to answer because it's quite clear where he plays, but I just guess, Graham Potter kind of the best way to utilise him. I don't know if the recent change to say a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 is actually a good thing for Mudryk compared to, say, the wing back sort of circus that we were playing before the World Cup.
In all honesty, I think he does play better in that sort of 4-3-3, 4-1, 4-2-3-1. Just because as a left winger, that's where he's been playing for the past few years. That's where he's gotten his right. Yeah, maybe he might be able to shift into the middle a bit more, but I think he'd be less able to expose some of those attributes such as pace if he is shifted in there, because he'll be more focused on using his passing and shooting, which is great. But I feel that if you've got someone who is that quick, why not actually put it in the best position that they can expose, which is on the wings? And at the end of the day, what I think he needs is probably a competent central midfielder or an attacking midfielder that will be able to sort of feed him in to those passes, those ones behind the fullback, sort of ones over the top as well, maybe from the centre backs, to sort of get him latching onto them, because he is that quick. He can literally run onto something, especially with the way that Chelsea are playing at the moment. They're not really trying to control games so heavily. There is a bit of a counter-attack play to them, at least for the next 6 months, I'd probably say so. And that is where where Mudryk can be best utilised, I think. He can play against low blocks, as people say, against very defensive teams. That will just mean that he'll be bringing a lot more of his teammates involved in sort of the combinations and everything else. And I think another key thing might be the way that Chelsea set up front in terms of centre forwards. Is Potter going to go for two up top, so maybe like Felix and Havertz or Aubameyang together, or is he just going to go for sort of a false nine type person like Havertz has been playing really over the past few months or so? And I think the false nine doesn't fully complement Mudryk, just on the basis that at Shakhtar he was playing with not a false nine, but he was playing with a centre forward in the box. But what happened a lot of the time was that Mudryk was coming in and essentially what happened was that there was no one to pass to, because the player was either not involved directly, or he wasn't the centre forward wasn't there to meet it, or he wasn't as good technically to receive the pass, to finish and everything else. So as long as he's got someone that can complement him and sort of help him, and I think sort of someone like Felix would actually be perfect. If he's maybe slightly deeper in that sort of support striker role, they can link up together really well. And I'd be really excited to see, once Felix is back, how that sort of tandem starts working.
Yeah, especially I just thinking about it, rather than just the Premier League stuff, we've got the Borussia Dortmund Champions League game, and it is quite exciting to think of a front line involving Felix and Mudryk, and potentially you have Mason Mount within there. We've recently signed Fofana, David Datcher Fofana, who is raw, but I think kind of feels a more natural striker profile than Kai Havertz does, who is kind of still a little bit like, what is he going to be at Chelsea? But it seems to pop up with good goals and big goals for Chelsea. So we'll see how it develops with Potter over the next few months. But thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me. Really good conversation. Thank you so much for lending your insight over Mudryk, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he can fulfill his potential over that 8-year contract at Stamford Bridge, and he turns out to be a Chelsea legend. But as I do with all my guests, I just give you a chance now to shout out where people can find your work online.
Yeah, thanks Daniel for having me. Good chat, and fingers crossed as well for everything to develop as planned. Yeah, if anyone wants to follow me in terms of finding out a bit more about Ukrainian football in English, you can follow me on Twitter at Zoria and Instagram as well if you're on there. Similarly, I do a podcast with a couple of friends called Ukraine Plus Football. We did sort of a breakdown episode on Mudryk recently, and we've got a new one coming out this week as well, just to sum up this deal too from our perspective and find out a bit more about all the other Ukrainian talent that's on the move potentially this summer. So you can find that on all good podcast platforms as well, Ukraine Plus Football.
Yeah, definitely go and check that out. Link in the description box below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode. Also, if you're listening on the podcast, thank you as well for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.